Have you ever felt like you're running on a treadmill, working harder and harder but getting nowhere? Meanwhile, it seems like the ultra-wealthy are just getting richer without breaking a sweat. If you felt that way, you're not alone, and you're not wrong. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a force that quietly shapes our world more than we realize: corporate greed. It's not just a moral issue. It's a powerful economic engine driving us toward a destination many of us don't want to go. Let's talk numbers for a second. We often hear about the widening wealth gap, but what does that actually mean? It means the lion's share of economic growth is being captured by a tiny fraction of the population. This isn't happening by accident. It's the direct result of decisions made in boardrooms, driven by an insatiable desire for profit above all else. This pursuit often leads to some really questionable practices. Think about it. Companies squeezing every last drop from their supply chains, cutting corners on safety, and most visibly, reducing worker benefits. Pensions, healthcare, fair wages. These are often the first things on the chopping block when the goal is to maximize shareholder value at any cost. One of the sneakiest ways this happens is through stock buybacks. Now, that might sound like complex financial jargon, but the concept is simple. Instead of reinvesting profits into the company, like giving raises, funding research and development, or improving infrastructure, a company uses that cash to buy its own stock. This artificially inflates the stock's price, which is great news for executives and large shareholders whose compensation is tied to stock performance. But for the average worker, it means the money that could have gone into their paycheck is instead used to make the rich even richer. This single practice is a massive engine of income inequality. But the influence of corporate greed doesn't stop at the office door. It spills out into our political system. When immense wealth is concentrated in a few hands, it gives those individuals and corporations an outsized voice in politics. Through lobbying and campaign contributions, they can push for policies that benefit them, not the general public. We're talking about deregulation that puts our environment at risk, or tax loopholes that allow massive corporations to pay little to nothing in taxes. This undermines the very foundation of our democracy, where every voice is supposed to matter equally. The result is a vicious cycle. Wealth buys political power, and that power is used to create policies that generate even more wealth for the few. And what about our planet? The relentless pursuit of short-term profit often comes at a massive long-term environmental cost. When the primary goal is to cut expenses and maximize output, sustainable practices are seen as an unnecessary expense rather than a vital investment. We see this in deforestation, pollution of our air and water, and a general reluctance to transition to cleaner energy. The health of our planet is being mortgaged for quarterly earnings reports. This isn't just about preserving beautiful landscapes, it's about ensuring a habitable world for future generations. The concentration of wealth and power makes it incredibly difficult to enact the bold, systemic changes needed to address the climate crisis. This growing divide isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It has real tangible effects on our society. When a large portion of the population is struggling to make ends meet, it creates social instability. Trust in institutions erodes, and a sense of unfairness can lead to widespread frustration and division. Economic inequality threatens social equity and justice. It means your starting point in life, the family you're born into, has an increasingly powerful influence on where you end up. This is the opposite of the meritocratic ideal that so many of us believe in. A society with such deep divisions struggles to function cohesively. From a purely economic standpoint, this level of inequality is self-defeating. A healthy economy relies on a large consumer base with money to spend. But if all the wealth is pooling at the top, the vast majority of people have less and less disposable income. This weakens overall demand. To compensate, many families take on more debt just to cover basic needs, creating a fragile economic bubble. High inequality doesn't just slow down growth, it makes our entire economy more vulnerable to shocks and crises. When the next downturn hits, a population already burdened by debt has no cushion to fall back on, making the recession deeper and longer for everyone. So, let's talk about one of the biggest drivers of this trend in recent decades: corporate tax cuts. The argument is always the same. If we cut taxes on corporations and the wealthy, they'll invest that money back into the economy, creating jobs and prosperity for all. It's the classic trickle-down theory. But what does the evidence actually show? Time and again, these massive tax cuts have predominantly benefited the wealthy. The extra cash doesn't trickle down, it floods upwards. The wealthy use sophisticated strategies to shift their income and take advantage of lower tax rates on capital gains, while ordinary wage earners don't have that luxury. The result? The gains go to shareholders through those stock buybacks we talked about, not to workers in the form of higher wages. While there might be some increase in investment, it happens alongside a dramatic rise in inequality, which ultimately cancels out many of the potential benefits. When you look back at historical tax cuts, the pattern is crystal clear. They have consistently led to a greater concentration of wealth at the very top of the income ladder. This isn't a partisan issue, it's a mathematical reality. Rising income inequality weakens the entire economic system. It leads to a savings glut among the wealthy, who can't possibly spend all their money, while the rest of the population is starved for cash. This imbalance contributes to lower interest rates and encourages risky financial behavior, setting the stage for the next financial crisis. True and sustainable economic growth is hampered because social mobility stalls. When people can't get ahead through hard work, the economy loses out on their potential talent and innovation. So, what's the solution? Is it all doom and gloom? Absolutely not. But fixing this requires a fundamental shift in our thinking. We need to recognize that reducing inequality isn't a charity project. It's essential for long-term economic health. This can start with smarter, more progressive tax policies. We're not talking about punishing success, but ensuring that those who have benefited the most from our economic system contribute their fair share to maintain it. This revenue can then be used to strengthen our social safety nets. Policies like unemployment insurance, affordable health care, and social security act as stabilizers, minimizing the impact of economic shocks on families and preventing spirals into poverty. Furthermore, we need to invest in people. Human development is where equity and economic efficiency meet. Investing in high-quality education from early childhood through college and providing access to job training and skill development are the most powerful tools we have for promoting social mobility. When everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential, the entire economy benefits. It creates a more skilled, innovative, and productive workforce. This is how you build a robust and resilient economy from the ground up, rather than hoping for wealth to trickle down from the top. It's about creating an economy that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. It's about choosing shared prosperity over concentrated greed. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I know it's a heavy topic, but it's one of the most important conversations we can be having right now. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content that challenges the way we look at the world. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going. See you next time.